story. Yeah. This is called Zealand, The Quest for Manhood by Leon Rice. This is a story about a young man named Zealand. It is intended for a young reader of the age of adolescence, perhaps considering religion and its implication in his or her own life. The story has Protestant overtones, but in no way is intended to denigrate the magnificence of the Catholic Church. It is quite simply religious fiction. Negativity with regard to either Protestant or Catholic religion is not intended. The Reformation did happen, and this is a simple little story about one young boy's journey into the realization of his future. Grumpoos was a crusty old man in his late 70s. He lived in the village of Voltaire in the French Alps. The year was 1517. Grumpoos was a man of extremes. Either he was totally elated, totally depressed, or mad as hell. You never could tell which man you were dealing with until it was too late. Everyone approached him with caution, though. Most of the time he was elated and a very happy man. Grumpoos's main purpose in the village was that of a prophetic nature. He was aware of what would come to pass in the future, and he helped the residents of Voltaire prepare for what awaited them. He was quite fond of his grandson Zealand. Zealand was 15 years old and worshipped his father. The sun set and rose in his grandfather, and as far as Zealand was concerned, he was quite fantastic. Their love for one another was obvious to everyone. Zealand's grandmother, Maricela, was a wonderful woman. She was warm, tender, kind, and quite robust. Grumpoos loved her madly. Oftentimes he thought that he didn't know what to do if anything happened to her. He was sure that he would not be able to live without her. What of Zealand's parents, you may wonder? They were both away on a quest in Germany, helping a man who would change the world, Martin Luther. Now, 5 days of the week, Zealand spent time with Cornelius, from noon until about 4 in the afternoon. Cornelius was a dwarf, and he was 38 inches tall and was kind and a gentle soul. He greeted everyone with a hug. He had knowledge of everything that had ever happened in the world. He knew about science and medicine, engineering, religion, mathematics, simply everything. It was his job to provide Zealand an education in most areas of endeavor. Zealand was a quick study, was very bright, and had no trouble with his studies. In the morning, Zealand spent time learning about the art of war and how to fight. Christoph was his teacher in this area. On Saturday, Zealand learned about art. He learned from a man in the village named Volcurie, who had studied with Albrecht Dürer in Germany. Art was not Zealand's strongest subject, but even though he enjoyed it very much, he was working on a painting of his grandfather Grumpoos. It was coming along quite nicely. On Sunday, Zealand and Grumpoos and Maricela usually ate the main meal of the day with Cornelius and his wife Amalthea. Amalthea was as kind and caring as her husband Cornelius and was of the same physical stature. When it came time for Zealand to marry, she would provide help, wisdom, and guidance in this area. It was said that she had the power of Cupid and could instill love in the hearts and minds of men and women. She never did this, though, without consulting her husband Cornelius, and then only on special occasions with special people like Zealand. This was something she had done for Grumpoos when he and Maricela were very young. Now, Zealand made his way down the main thoroughfare of Voltaire, past the shops and buildings that made up the small village. He entered Cornelius' house from the back, and Amalthea was there in the larder preparing food for the morning meal. "Pray thee, Lord, what weather hast thou brought forth for us this day? Is it sunshine we shall have, or the nectar of the gods to make the flowers grow?" said Amalthea. "'Tis truly sunshine that will grace us all this day long," replied Zealand. "Are they in need of something at this early morning hour to eat?" inquired Amalthea. What have thee, woman, that I might devour ravenously? He chided. Do not speak to me with reproach, young lord. I have only your well-being in my mind. I feel not the pangs of hunger at this early morning hour. Perhaps something to drink would suit my fancy, if you please, replied Zealand with retort. Dost thou jest with Arabella at this early morning hour, young Zealand? Said Cornelius, with mock scolding in his voice. He came into the room. Indeed, it is truly just that I offer, Amalthea. No harm is intended. Perhaps we will both have a container of ale, or would tea be more appropriate for the young lord? I think tea would tickle my fancy, illustrious teacher. Then tea it will be, my lord, replied Amalthea with a proud smile. What hast thou wrought, young Zealand? I believe she has seen the humor in thy chiding. They all chuckled and enjoyed the tea. Zealand truly loved Cornelius and Amalthea and would do anything for them. He knew that between the two of them they held his future in their hands. With Cornelius, it was the knowledge of the world. Amalthea would provide him with the love of his life and the love of the centuries and the woman of his greatest desire. He was happier now than he thought possible. He had every reason to believe that things would improve with age. 'Tis wonderment to my mind that the two of you bring. It is a true blessing that I have with thee both, said Zealand with warmth and affection in his voice. Better friends than the two of you I could not have. They finished their tea, and Zealand gave them both a hug and left Cornelius' house and walked up the road toward Christoph's. It was time for lessons in war and killing. This was the one part of his life that he didn't like, but Grandpus said that it was important, and not just important, but crucial for his future. Christoph's house was a modest little dwelling, and the exterior of the house did not comport the seriousness of the person that lived inside, nor did it reveal the travesties of the topics of war that were discussed inside. Grandpus told Zealand that although hideous tales of terror were going to be imparted to him, he needed to learn about them and understand that he might be required to carry them out to protect his family and his people. Simply seeing the house brought terror to his mind. With great reluctance, Zealand knocked on Christoph's door, and Christoph opened it. You're late, my young lord. I see that my time would have been better spent with another than you. Pray forgive me, Christoph. The time had simply gotten away from me. I assure you there will be no recurrence of the tardiness, replied Zealand. Let that be the end of it, then. Come, we'll start straight away. Christoph was a cold and callous man, hardened by years of battle, killing, and war in foreign lands. In his earlier life, he was physically, he didn't appear to be a special specimen of a man, but his demeanor and commanding presence made him a person to be taken with serious consideration. As much as Zealand hated it, he realized that Christoph was teaching him needed information and skills. Killing, my young lord, is again the topic of the day. Today I will instruct thee in the fine art of killing with your hands and the sword. Here, take this. He handed Zealand a razor-sharp broadsword. Zealand followed Christoph out the back door into an inside courtyard, totally obscured from the outside world, but open to the sky above. Christoph had set up a number of melons on posts in the center of the courtyard. There were also 4 dummies stuffed with straw standing at attention at the far end of the yard. Watch closely, my young lord, said Christoph with a glint in his eye. Imagine, if you will, that these are the heads of the enemy combatants. Christoph moved quickly past each post, swinging the sword with great fury at each one, slicing the melons into pieces, with the remnants falling to the ground. As easily as I have sliced these melons, so too will you be able to sever the heads of the enemy. Think not of them as men, but simply the murderers of your family, as killers who would sooner kill thee than gaze on thy naked face. This is war, my son. This is what war is all about. The savagery of the implicit acts was surpassed only by Christoph's seemed rage and anger. Zealand was frightened of Christoph, but Christoph knew this, and he had told him that he had no reason to fear him. Just listen to what he had said, listen to what he taught him, and learn to kill. Zealand's lessons in war and killing went well today. Christoph taught him hand-to-hand combat and fighting with a sword. He practiced on the straw dummies, thrusting the sword again and again into them. Finally, he was able to think of the dummies as something terrible in the world. He thought of them as the killers of Grumpus and Cornelius and Amaltheus and Maricilla. Finally, he came to the realization that he really would be able to protect them and everyone else in the village. This must be what Grumpus was talking about, this feeling of being self-sufficient, able to take care of the ones you loved and cherished in the world. Maybe Christoph was right. There really was a place for this. Christoph thought Zealand had done well today. He was certain Zealand could learn that he needed to know how to fight in a battle. There was only one thing that he couldn't teach him. How do you teach someone to deal with fear in battle if they've never been in battle? He supposed that he'd have to talk to Cornelius about this. He was sure Cornelius would have the answer to the question. He tried to remember the first time he went to battle, but he couldn't remember if he was frightened or not. He was sure he probably was, but... How was it for thee then, young lord? The fighting, I mean. Think they could protect us, if need be? Well, Christoph, I think perhaps I could. I really think I could. Zealand turned to leave, and Christoph put his hand on his shoulder, looked him straight in the eye, and said, "Do not be frightened of me, young lord. I will not harm thee." Filled with Christoph's rhetoric of killing, Zealand made his way back to town through Cornelius's house. Despite his apparent success with Christoph, he placed the memory of fighting in a private place in his mind. He would not think of it again until tomorrow, when it was time to fight and practice killing again. Cornelius gave Zealand a hug when he entered the house. Zealand notices immediately this house was far removed from the endeavors of Christoph. He was a happy young man in the presence of Cornelius and Amalthea. They brought joy to his life. "So tell me, how goes the craft of war today?" inquired Cornelius. "I learned killing with my hands and the broadsword today, and on the morrow and for a fortnight we shall learn planning an assault on a village. After that, for a fortnight again, I'll be instructed in defending our village." "Serious tasks, these. Learn these lessons well," commented Cornelius. "In a short time, you'll be the defender, as well as the defender of the Reformation. Grumpus will speak to thee about this Reformation." "But I'm still a lad, not yet a man. Am I to become a man at this short notice?" "Physical strength and age are nothing to do with manhood. Manhood is in your mind. You'll be there soon enough," said Cornelius. "Pray thee, Cornelius, the prospect frightens me. But how will I know? It will spring forth from your mind in great revelation. Grumpus and I have been watching your progress, and we believe you're almost there." Zealand and Cornelius sat quietly for a short time, and Amalthea prepared her noon meal. "I have mutton for the two of you for today, for your noonday sustenance. Pray thee, eat heartily, gentlemen." Amalthea returned to the rear courtyard and sat in the noonday sun, contemplating matters of love and the heart and her dear sweet Cornelius. Cornelius and Zealand ate their meal, and when they had finished, Zealand inquired, "What will our lesson be for this day, Cornelius?" "We shall speak of the ancestry of your people and how your people came to live in Voltaire." "It is my understanding, kind sir, that you are not from the Voltaire, and that your home country will always remain a secret for yours and Amalthea's safety. Is there truth in this, or have I been led astray?" inquired Zealand. "A truer statement could not be made, young gentleman. Gentile Amalthea and I barely made it out of our country with our lives. We left everything, including our titles. I will tell only this. There are many more of us in the small stature in which I exist, and we all do great work in the world and deeds of kindness. Now as for yourself, your ancestors are from England, a majestic country. It has its dark side, but England is a major influence in the world. Your grandfather Grumpus lived in England, as I'm sure you're aware. Master Zealand, your grandfather is a prophet and knows the wherefore and the events of the future. He is indeed a wise man. I know what is and has always been. Your grandfather knows what is and will be. So shall you be a prophet and know the wherefore and events of the future. In this way we will prepare ourselves to meet our enemies head on with no reluctance. When your grandfather first became aware of his gift, he simply predicted the weather and simple events that would take place in the days and weeks that lay ahead of the residents of his fair town. Because of the accuracy of his predictions, the citizens of the fair village became frightened of him. He was branded a heretic and a warlock. He and your parents fled the country and took residence in Voltaire. Your grandfather predicted that our village would be attacked, but residents of Voltaire had not yet established trust in Grumpus and in their minds. If they would have listened to him, the siege against the village could have been avoided and would not have many would not have been killed. Pray thee, Cornelius, if Grumpus could predict that we would be attacked, why wasn't he able to predict that many would be killed, or did he? Reasoned Zealand. Your grandfather explained to us all that he knew many important events that would come to pass, but not every single outcome. So shall it be with you. The reason I know this is that your grandfather has imparted this knowledge to me. God himself has told me what has been. If God tells me, I know it is truth. This is God's gift to me. Zealand and Cornelius talked for the rest of the afternoon, with Cornelius filling Zealand in on the details of his grandfather's, and his life, and their life in England. Amalthea entered the room once again and inquired as to whether the men were hungry and if they would be in need of food in the near future. They indicated that they were not hungry, and Zealand prepared to leave for home. Almost as an afterthought, Amalthea commented, "You are of the age now, young Zealand, when your mind will turn to matters of the heart and of love and having a family. Consider, if thee will, which of the young women in the village thee might consider for a wife." "Not yet a man, and still I might make considerations for a wife? I am truly blessed. I shall do as you have instructed, kind Amalthea." Realizing that the hour was late, Zealand gave them both a hug. With the crimson sun low in the sky, surrounded by clouds, and the mountains standing majestically in the background, Zealand gave his final goodbyes of the day and left for home.